My fellow peeps, welcome back to Lore and Chill. Today we're going to be reacting to the Explained series on Dark Souls lore from the man himself, VaatiVidya. A man we love very much here on the channel. We're going to be doing Dark Souls 2 story explained, we're going to be doing the first sin explained, the ending explained, and the DLC ending explained. A lot of explanations. If I'm being honest, I didn't really know what the hell was going on in this game. We read a ton of item descriptions, we paid attention to what was going on, but I do have a lot of questions, so I'm hoping that VaatiVidya can enlighten us. I do know from experience that VaatiVidya sometimes does a lot of speculating and whatnot, but I still love that. Dark Souls 3 will be starting on Monday, May 15th. I am beyond excited, so I can't wait to see you guys there. And without further, before we get started, I managed to find a copy of the original Dark Souls 2 sealed on the Xbox 360 at my local video game store. Very excited about this. I'll probably never open it. Make sure to leave a like, it'd be much appreciated. I am very scared about this. Alrighty guys, so first order of business, we're doing Dark Souls 2 story explained. Let's do this.
This video will make more sense if you've watched part 1 of this series.
Never mind. Alrighty, we're starting with the ending explained. Here we go, baby.
When you finish the game, you have a lot of questions.
Yes.
Who are the giants? What did King Vendrick steal from them? Why does Nishandra need you to open the door to the throne? Why does the Emerald Herald want you to ascend the throne of want? Why doesn't Vendrick sit upon the throne of want? What is the throne of want? Now, all of this is really overwhelming, I know, but by the end of this video, you should at least understand my interpretation of events, and this can serve as a really good framework to build your own theories from.
Perfect.
So, I'm going to start at the end and work my way backwards.
Love
now,
it.
this might sound strange, but there is a reason for it, because most characters in Dark Souls 2 are driven by a desire, a want. For example, to understand Vendrick's hollowed state and location, you have to understand what he desired above all else and how it led him there. To understand Nishandra's desire for the throne, we have to understand why it was so important to her, and to understand why the Emerald Herald drives you to become king, we need to know why she needs a new monarch. Do you understand? The reason we have these questions is because these character wants are hidden from us until the very end. That's why you got to the end of the game and you still had questions. Even the cursed undead you play as in-game is told that they will do these things without really knowing why. And you as a player are no different. The Firekeeper says it.
But one day, you will stand before its decrepit gate without really knowing why.
Damn, she did tell us right off
The
the bat.
Maiden says it.
If you are to be the next monarch, then one day you will walk those grounds without really knowing why.
Grave Warden Agdane says it.
How queer you humans. How you go on, never separating.
Honestly, don't feel that bad anymore for not really getting it, so.
Do you see? As the ancient dragon says, the curse of life is the curse of want, and you peer into the fog in hope of answers. This game, more than any other Souls game, is about a search for answers. So this is great for channels like mine that
That's
interpret the lore.
awesome. We ended up doing the other ending, where we walk out the room. I really enjoyed that, but this is also really cool. I'm guessing the giants are gonna form a bit of a bridge there.
Bad for the average player who has no idea what's going on. And I'd assume this focus on answers is why so many item descriptions have questions within them, because they want to make you question the world you find yourself in. And so we start with the Throne of Want. What is it? Well, first off, the throne room itself is a kiln. And to understand why being a kiln is significant, you have to understand the principles of this world, and it just so happens that they're the same principles we found in Lordran in Dark Souls 1.
Right.
In the Dark Souls 1 opening cinematic, we see the shambling forms of hollows. They're called that, presumably because they're empty vessels, hollow. Then the first flame appeared, containing powerful souls. One hollow found the Dark Soul and used it to give birth to humanity. Another 3 found their powerful souls within the first flame, and one of these lords became Gwyn, Lord of Sunlight. His soul was power, and he ushered in an age of light and fire. In time, though, this age began to dwindle. The brighter the flame, the shorter its life, and so the world began to darken. Everything fell apart around Gwyn, Lord of Sunlight. His city became abandoned, his trusted friends betrayed him. Demons were spawned when one of his fellow lords tried to relight the first flame, and humanity began to be afflicted by the curse of the undead. Undead are kept sane through their strength of purpose, and one undead took on an impossible purpose. He journeyed through the crumbling world and consumed thousands of powerful souls in the process, eventually gathering the strength to overthrow the fading Lord Gwyn. In the kiln of the first flame, where Lord Gwyn once linked the flame to his own soul, an undead with a powerful soul did the same. He links the flame to his soul like Gwyn did, and the flame consumes him, starting a new age of fire. Before Dark Souls 2, we didn't...
I'm sorry, I gotta say, man, Dark Souls 1 felt so special. Looking back at it, I don't know why, but it felt so almost nostalgic in a way, and it was just so good, man. I can't wait for Dark Souls 3, man.
Didn't know what effect this would have. We assumed linking the fire would bring light back to the world, and we were right. We also knew that linking the fire is a temporary solution, as everything fades in time. But what we didn't know is that this process is destined to play out over and over again. It's a cycle. The dull ember, an item we come across in our journey, gives us a clue about the cycle of light and dark. An ember radiating a dull light. This flame seems nearly exhausted, but it exhibits an eerie resilience. Perhaps this is its ordinary state. I think this quote reflects the concept of light and dark in the game. I think it means that the center point of light and dark is around a struggling, spluttering flame. Gwyn linked the fire with his soul. This prolonged his age of light. Eventually it faded to its natural state, where there were only cinders. At this point, an undead comes along with another immense soul. He can either choose to link the flame and bolster the age of fire, or let it splutter and die and lead an age of dark. In Dark Souls 1, this is your choice. Right. Whether you choose light or dark, it's possible that it doesn't even matter, because if you choose light, your age of light will eventually fade to cinders, and if you choose dark, you might smother the flame, but an ember will always remain in the ashes, waiting to be blown back into life. In Dark Souls 2, there's an item called Sublime Bone Dust. Its description says that it is the remains of a saint who cast himself into the bonfire. But we will never know for sure, for soot and ashes tell no story. This isn't just any old dust, it allows you to bolster the power of your Estus Flask, which heals the undead. It's also found numerous times throughout the game, in numerous locations, so it's implied that these are the remains of the chosen undead before you, the chosen undead who linked the fire before burning to dust themselves.
Damn.
Many kingdoms rose and fell on this tract of earth. Mine was by no means the first. Anything that has a beginning also has an end. No flame, however brilliant, does not one day splutter and fade. But then, from the ashes, the flame reignites, and a new kingdom is born, sporting a new face.
This tells us that the cycle has repeated itself numerous times. Many have sacrificed themselves to renew the cycle of light, and their ashes are found throughout the land. One after the other, without fail, a chosen undead resigns himself to the kiln to link his soul with the first flame. So it's my theory that the undead curse crops up once the flame begins to fade, so that eventually a fated undead will appear with the willpower to gather souls and link the flame once again. When you link the fire, you're also removing the undead curse from the world for a short time. But only for a short time, for when the world darkens, the curse appears again.
The curse is a part of life itself. No one will ever be rid of it. And so there is only one choice: to await a worthy monarch. A monarch who can shoulder your burden, lest this land swallow you whole, as it has so many others.
You are the bearer of the curse, but this means more than you'd think. You don't just bear the curse of the undead where you die over and over, but by linking the fire, you also bear the burden of this cursed world. You are the worthy monarch who sacrifices himself so that humans can die instead of going hollow. Why do humans go hollow? Well, do you remember the hollows from the Dark Souls 1 opening cinematic? That seems to be their natural state.
Damn.
Some of these hollows found humanity in the first flame and became human. Reverting to your hollow state doesn't seem that unnatural when you consider that, does it? So as I said earlier, remember the throne room you enter at the end of the game? Look at the design, it's a kiln. Just like the kiln in the first game, it exists to house the first flame. A kiln used to change the form of something with heat. The throne and the room itself is covered in ash, and as you enter, the Emerald Herald tells you that you can link the fire, should you choose to do so. The giant's kinship reads, "Each king has his rightful throne, and when he sits upon it, he sees what he chooses to see. Or perhaps it is the throne which shows the king only what he wants." So this is the effects of the ending. For now, simply know that it represents another cycle taking place. You are sitting upon a throne, and the throne is but a symbol of power and choice. The power and choice that lighting the first flame gives to you, as you can decide how to reshape your world. The Emerald Herald says that once the fire is linked, the souls you've inherited will flourish anew, and inherit new bodies, and all of the events that just occurred will play out again. The Age of Fire will be bolstered, and the undead curse may disappear, but in time the fire will fade, and eventually a new undead will come along, bound by fate. She then says it's your choice to embrace or renounce this. And like in Dark Souls 1, you have that choice to embrace light, or to reject it and let darkness come. The only difference between Dark Souls 2 and Dark Souls 1 that I can see is that in Dark Souls 2, we aren't able to make the in-game choice of linking the flame or walking away from it. And when you think about it, why would we need to make that choice in-game? Because now we know, regardless of what we choose, you, as a player, know the cycle will start over again.
Great Sovereign, take your throne. What lies ahead, only you can see.
That's a cute-ass character, man. Yo, what the hell?
Now that you know what the Throne of Want represents...
Yeah, no, we're watching that next. I have so many thoughts. Okay, so I'm gonna guess that he made this video before the DLC came out, because I think once the DLC came out, that's when you actually had a choice to walk out, because the walkout has such an emphasis on like the Scholar of the First Sin, Aldea. So knowing that the cycle repeats it's really cool, obviously, but I feel like it adds to that like oppressive state of these games. This might be a hot take, but it almost makes the journey feel kind of pointless. Maybe Dark Souls 3 will actually be able to fucking end the cycle completely. That would be kind of cool. I don't know. It's almost like, you know, you as a player, when you start playing, you are the chosen one and you beat the game, and then another player gets it, and then that player beats the game, and it's just like the cycle repeats, you know? So in a way, we're all part of the same journey. I don't know what the hell I'm saying. Let's watch the next video, man. Dark Souls 2 Story Explained. This is something I say almost in every reaction video that we do of VaatiVidya. It's so hard to pause and like give my thoughts right there and then, because he's just so damn good, and I don't want to miss a beat, and it feels almost disrespectful to pause on him. But I'm gonna try and, you know, give my takes as we go. This one is a little bit longer, so we'll see how it goes. I love how he brought up Dark Souls 1 as much as he did. That was great. Let's jump into this one. Dark Souls 2 Story Explained.
This video will make more sense if you've watched part 1 of this series, where I explain the ending. Because now that we know what it means to sit upon the throne, we can explore the stories of those who would sit upon it. And it turns out, the original king of Drangleic, Vendrick, was supposed to link the flame and sit the throne, but he never did. And when you acquire his soul, it is a soul of he who would link the flame. Queen Nashandra also makes reference to this when you visit her in the throne room.
The last king of this land, King Vendrick, as he was called. He was less of a king than you might imagine. He found the strength to rule his people, and when the undead were born, cursed, he found more strength to face them. But in the end, he never took the true throne. A true monarch is much more than a ruler of men. A true monarch carries the weight of their souls.
If a true monarch must carry a huge weight of souls and incinerate himself in the kiln to link the fire, then perhaps Vendrick wanted none of it. So now we go back before there was a king, a queen, and back before Vendrick's kingdom of Drangleic was even founded. Many kingdoms have risen and fallen on the spot that is now called Drangleic. The kingdoms take different shapes, but the framework is always the same. There's always a king, there is always the undead curse, and there are always 4 powerful souls. Right. Back in Dark Souls 1, there were 4 great ones. It's likely these were the first 4 great ones, as they found their souls within the first flame.
Many kingdoms have risen and fallen on this very spot, each like a great flame that turns to soot.
King Vendrick founded Drangleic.
He vanquished the 4 great ones and built this kingdom upon their souls.
Vendrick crushed the kingdom and the 4 great ones who existed before him. He then instigated a powerful kingdom named Drangleic, which came about due to those who fought for him. The ring bearing the soldier's seal was granted to warriors who distinguished themselves in the service of King Vendrick. He also commanded the Dragon Riders, elite knights straddling dragons, who helped him crush the kingdom's former inhabitants.
That's cool.
Drangleic was built upon the graves of those they defeated, and his kingdom prospered. But Vendrick wasn't just interested in gaining the throne, he also sought to maintain it. And then there was a queen.
The king had a dear queen, a woman of unparalleled beauty. Long ago, the queen came to us, alone, from a faraway land.
She warned our lord of the looming threat across the seas, of the giants. The king crossed the ocean and defeated the giants with the queen at his side.
This is so fucking cool, man. This is why I love VaatiVidya's videos, because he makes it so cinematic and he puts all of the dialogue pieces together, like the really important chunks, and it just tells the story in such a smooth way. It's so sick. And sometimes it makes me wish that these games were told this way, you know? And again, that might be a hot take, but I do understand that, you know, the lore is there for you to grasp on, you know, the item descriptions, the dialogues, like it's very important, but it's different when you're, you know, playing the game and you're listening to so much dialogue every time you talk to an NPC to just getting the bits and pieces that put the story together. That's why I love watching these, man. I always grow more love for the games after we watch these videos. It's happened with Bloodborne, it's happened with Dark Souls 1. So far, the lore of this game is phenomenal, and we just got started. I just wanted to say that, all right? Trying to make this a commentary video, not just a watch party, but hope you guys are enjoying it. Thanks for being here.
Commandeered their power and created the golems.
With the golems, the king created this castle to celebrate victory and to show his love, his gratitude to his queen.
The queen brought peace to this land and to her king.
A peace so deep, it was like
the dark.
Is this some sort of a dream?
Where am I? What has happened to our castle?
Long ago, the king crossed the seas, pillaged the land of giants, and brought back a prize. It was then that the golems materialized.
Whatever Vendrick stole, it appears to have come with the ability to create automatons in the form of golems. Golems are inanimate beings that carry out a set purpose, like opening a door or building a bridge. This purpose is powered by souls, so it seems as if the thing Vendrick stole from the giants allowed him to infuse things with souls. Key to many advancements was the king's elder brother Aldia. Aldia helped found Drangleic, and he was known...
Aldia was the king's older brother? Oh my god, it's literally right there. Oh, we didn't read the Aldia hammer description. Classic.
For his experiments. The mysterious Lord Aldia secluded himself inside a manor to conduct various experiments. Those who visited the manor disappeared, replaced over time with malformed beasts that roamed its halls. His discarded experiments are seen throughout the entire land of Drangleic, and I believe that when the kingdom encountered trouble, Vendrick turned to his brother for an experiment that might just solve his problem. After conquering the giants, Drangleic knew peace for a time. This peace was destined to be short-lived, for the undead curse had begun to appear in Drangleic. Vendrick was trying to find ways to fight the curse. Many of his actions and the structures and creations within the land seem bent towards this end. Like the rulers of Lordran before him, Vendrick was frightened by the curse, and unlike the lords in Lordran, Vendrick was human and susceptible to the curse, just like his subjects were. The origins of the curse is becoming known to us. The common trend between the two games is that the curse appears when the flame is fading. But Vendrick doesn't know this. Like the lords in Lordran before him, Vendrick assumed that the curse was almost like an infection, and he condemns the undead, imprisoning and exiling them. The Huntsman's Copse is evidence of this mindset. Undead hunts took place here before Vendrick's time, and these were led by the Old Iron King. Undead were corralled and locked away, but this solved nothing. Also, the Skeleton Lords were once charged with the capture of all undead, but even they were overcome by the curse. And lastly, the executioner's chariot was created only to torment undead, running endlessly in a loop and running the undead down over and over.
Brutal.
And regardless of all this not working, when King Vendrick became ruler of Drangleic, he took similar measures to the rulers before him. Long ago, the dungeons overflowed with the accursed, and the king commanded a contorted sentry to deliver those with no cells to a faraway land, to make certain that they were never heard from again.
That's
we all
why you
fought
end
the
up
Flexile
there.
sentry, who waits in a boat outside No Man's Wharf. When the bell is rung, it signals that a new shipment has arrived, and the Flexile sentry comes in to take them away. The king also hired shadow men to put down the hollows, but before long, they were hollowed themselves. And we see the Pursuer, which is a being without much backstory, other than his purpose to hunt down bearers of the curse and cut them down. During all this, Vendrick's time was running out. A powerful soul is like a curse, and Vendrick, king of Drangleic, used a powerful soul to keep the curse at bay. Soldan tells us that the curse is traceable to the soul. If the soul is the essence of life itself, then the real curse must be to walk this very earth. Vendrick is commonly touted as one who peered straight into the essence of the soul, presumably in an attempt to understand this curse. Vendrick and his brother Aldia began trying to discover the secrets of life itself. The malformed claws tell us this, saying that Aldia viewed the undead as key to this mystery. At some point, I think it's likely that they stumbled upon something that we know, but they didn't. That the curse of the undead seems to be tied to the fading flame. That previous kingdoms saw the undead curse appear when the first flame faded, or that a cycle was taking place where kingdoms were rising into an age of fire and falling into an age of dark. That there was almost some sort of fate involved. From item descriptions and from Aldia's creations, we can see that Vendrick and Aldia were trying to find a way to cheat fate. It looks like they were trying to find a way to preserve their kingdom, so that fate would not recycle their kingdom just like all the others. But how do you cheat fate?
Can't do
The
it.
Seed of a Tree of Giants tells us that death is not the end, for anything that has ever once lived remains a part of a great cycle of regeneration.
I love that.
But what of those outside the cycle? The only things outside the cycle of death and rebirth are those that never lived at all, the ancient dragons. Aldia kept giants in his manor and attempted to recreate a dragon, but after some time, he was not heard from again. We find the ancient dragon at the peak of the Dragon Eyrie. It's a really peculiar being, as it drops a giant soul upon death, along with dragon bones. It's almost as if Aldia used a giant soul to construct such a being. We know that after Vendrick invaded the giants, he came back with the ability to construct golems. He could also infuse souls into inanimate objects. What if Aldia tried to reanimate an ancient dragon in the same manner? The powerful soul would give life to the inanimate bones, just like regular souls give life to the golems.
You'll find a great creature far to the east. A colossal thing with the strength to match its size. Or something playing the part at least.
Brave undead, what did that dragon tell you? That thing is a prop, a false deity. Don't be fooled, my undead.
It's possible, considering all this, that Aldia thought that by reviving the ancient dragon, he could revive a being that was outside the shackles of fate. The ancient dragons of Dark Souls 1 were outside the cycle of fire and dark, living in a lifeless age of grey. He went further than this though, when you consider the dialogue of Shanalot, the Emerald Herald.
My name is Shanalot. The dragon gave me this name, for I was born with none. I was born of dragons. Contrived by men.
Born of dragons, contrived by men. It looks as if Aldia attempted to birth another Firekeeper, a melding of human and dragon in the form of Shanalot, the Emerald Herald, one who could break the shackles of fate itself and maintain the fires indefinitely.
They say that she is the last Firekeeper, but they say a lot of things.
But they failed. I did not come out as intended. Fate would not be bested, and men were cursed once again.
At some point during all this, the giants must have rallied and invaded Drangleic with a vengeance. This battle spans multiple generations, bringing Drangleic to ruin.
My father and his father both fought the giants on this very land. Soon, the giants will descend upon this fort. It is revenge for the kingdom's misguided barbarism. My blade may break, my arrows fall wide, but my will shall never be broken.
In the midst of this invasion, I think that King Vendrick had a chilling realization. Vendrick's attempt to create the Emerald Herald tells us that he understands a cycle is taking place, a cycle where kingdoms are born into an age of light and eventually descend into darkness. When the darkness comes, undead appear. So when he considers this, everything must have become clear. When someone like Vendrick considered where the darkness must have come from in his kingdom, he would have realized that it came to him long ago.
Right.
This queen made him invade the giants. This queen got his kingdom into the state it was in, and this queen came before a darkening kingdom. When he considers this, everything makes sense. His wife, the queen, is a pretender and a manipulator. Slowly, she has grown closer to the throne of want, and closer to the first flame.
We have no need for two rulers.
Nashandra's want is the first flame.
I thought the queen was like the good person out of the two. So, I guess not so much. This would make for a sick movie, man. I mean, each game would make for an amazing movie or series, but just this lore, like if it was shown from beginning to end, like Vendrick's whole journey, it'd probably have to be like a fucking trilogy or something, or like a 5-season show. But this goes hard. This goes really hard. Sometimes I wish I could watch these before playing the game so I could understand them, but honestly, there's some beauty in getting through your entire journey and then figuring it out. And also something I'm picking up on, there's a ton of lore that we're missing from not reading the weapon item descriptions. So I might do that in Dark Souls 3 just to expand our knowledge while we're playing. Anyways.
Nashandra's want is the first flame, as it's called by the Emerald Herald, the Great Soul. And as we mentioned before, this is either within the structure at the end of the game or embodied by it. And so now we come to understand the want of Nashandra. She wants access to the first flame and the Great Soul, which is an access only a king of Drangleic can give.
Right.
If you proceed, Nashandra will come after you, knowing that you will take the throne and link the fire. She covets the first flame and the Great Soul. Put Nashandra to rest. And then...
But Vendrick's want was to deny fate. We see this in his actions, in the creation of the ancient dragon, and in the birth of his Emerald Herald. We saw it as he hunted the undead, and we see it within the experiments of Aldia's Keep. And finally, we see it in his soul, the soul of he who would link the fire. King Vendrick refused to open the door to the throne, and he refused to link the first flame with his own soul. This is the first flame that Nashandra wants so badly.
The flame. The flame. Souls. More souls.
This makes Nashandra like way cooler, in all honesty. I thought she was kind of lame as a final boss, but this makes her a lot cooler from a lore perspective. I'm down for this. Back it up a bit.
Nashandra is characterized by her lust for power. Every fragment of her being is bent towards this end. Her origins are shrouded in mystery to the main characters of Drangleic, but we learn of her origins once we obtain her soul. I don't know if you've read it, but her soul states, Nashandra was born of the dark with an insatiable lust for strength. The Bow of Want, formed from her soul, tells us that when the Old One of the Abyss was destroyed, his soul split into minuscule fragments, and these were spread across the land.
Oh my
the Old
God.
One is Manus from Dark Souls 1. This is confirmed by the official guide. Manus was responsible for the spread of the Abyss in Dark Souls 1, an ancient being characterized by his lust for his lost pendant. So similarly, Nashandra is driven by her lust for power. The Bow of Want description tells us of how the smallest of these pieces of Manus, sensing its own fragility, yearned for what it lacked. Precisely due to its size, the smallest piece of Manus was the first to restore its form. A form that looks remarkably like Princess Dusk, who Manus stole from Ulyssil, but that's a topic for another day.
Damn.
We can't be sure how Vendrick realizes this, but when he recognizes Nashandra's true nature, he must give up on cheating fate. He accepts that the curse will take over his flesh and his mind, but his final act is to deny his queen. King Vendrick prepares all the pieces of the puzzle and makes his move. Whatever the cost to him, his queen will not ascend the throne. And so, let's work backwards from the throne, and let's finally see how Vendrick set up the barriers to Nashandra's rule. The giant's kinship grants access to the throne beneath the castle. Why we need to be of giant blood to ascend the throne is a topic we'll hopefully understand soon, but note that the throne has a human-sized seat carved into a much...
I thought the same thing, man. I thought the same thing just, earlier when we were watching this. Like, how the hell could he have fit in that? Same with the path to the Throne of Want. It's a tiny little bridge, How the hell was he... Anyways, I'm getting overly excited over this.
Much larger throne. We find the giant's kinship within the memory of Jay, a giant who fell in the final battle with Drangleic, where the Giant Lord was present. The Giant Lord was eventually defeated by an unnamed hero, and we take their place inside the memory in order to obtain the giant's kinship. The memories of the giants can only be accessed once you have obtained the Ashen Mist Heart, which requires the blessing of the ancient dragon hidden deep within the dragon shrine. Such a thing cannot be taken by force. Mist is associated with time travel and space, and it's also associated with the ancient dragons. So it makes a degree of sense then that the false ancient dragon should have the ability to give you something like this. Something to access the memory of giants, something to get the giant's kinship, and something to let you access the throne. The doors to all of these things only open when one wears the king's ring. The king resided in Drangleic Castle with his queen, but eventually retreated deeper within it with his ring. I imagine Vendrick traveling with his trusted protector Velstart deeper into Drangleic Castle. He assigns the Looking Glass Knight to overlook the entrance to Amarna. Fearing something wicked, the king fled the castle and never returned, but his warrior, forever true to his command, stands ready to expunge those who would challenge him.
That's so awesome,
So the king traveled to his Shrine of Amarna, which exists below Drangleic Castle. Its purpose, I believe, is to repel Nashandra. Within it are the Milfinito, who sing to bring comfort to those bound by death and dark.
When we sing, the little ones dance. The little ones grant comfort to those who bear death and dark.
The little ones are the fireflies. While the Milfinitos sing, the fireflies gather around those bound by death and dark, rendering them passive, docile, and inert.
Oh, so I didn't have to kill all of them? Classic.
If we stop them singing, then the creatures of death and dark become aggressive and revert to their natural selves. Nashandra's very being is death and dark, and she would be bound by this calming force if she attempted to travel through here.
Right.
Within Drangleic Castle, we also see a captured Milfinito, which presumably was taken by the queen as she attempted to penetrate the shrine after Vendrick went through it. So at one point when Vendrick is traveling through the shrine, he splits himself apart from his soul and places it behind a door only openable by a human. Maybe one day the chosen undead will pass through here, unable to be broken down by the undead curse. Hence, they will be human and able to open this door and obtain the king's soul, and maybe then they'll understand. From here, after splitting his soul, I imagine that Vendrick is carried by his trusted hand Velstart, who carries his husk of a body to rest in the undead crypt. Velstart, known as the Royal Aegis, gave himself to the king both in life and death. Vendrick's armor is placed in a neat pile, with the king's ring ready to be taken by a worthy undead. Perhaps his gear is put aside by Velstart in the hopes that the chosen undead will take the ring and what he needs, but not harm the king he has been charged with protecting. The king is a soulless husk, and there is nothing to be gained from killing him. One day, this undead may link the fire.
Sorry, what was that?
But not harm the king he has been charged with protecting. The king is a soulless husk, and there is nothing to be gained from killing him.
There's nothing to be gained. And I slaughter him. I slaughter him like an animal. Well, no, we did get something. We did get kind of something. But dude, you guys are probably watching the video, not my little box here in the corner. My jaw has been just on the floor. I don't want to jump the gun here, but like well, no, I'm not jumping the gun. I'm just really enjoying this story. I'm really loving this lore. Jesus, this is amazing. This is a really cool story. It's making all the bosses have so much more purpose. Everything about the Shrine of Amarna, it's almost like it's supposed to be awful. It's supposed supposed to make people not want to go through it. I just thought the game was pulling some bullshit on us, you know, which it kind of is still to a certain degree, but with the lore, it just adds a little bit of extra coolness to it, if that makes any sense. This has been great, man. I can't believe it's almost over, dude. This is
one day, this undead may link
VaatiVidya,
the
man.
fire. Vendrick knows that he will one day be overthrown by an undead worthy to link the flame, for it is written in fate, but he makes sure that Nashandra will not be the one to open it, as the barriers to her presence are great.
He really made sure of that.
The king's ultra great sword depicts the queen. Only the king knows whether the depiction of the queen is an affectionate exaltation or a resentful mockery. I believe...
Okay. This is something that I'm probably going to bring into Dark Souls 3, okay? And if I don't, you guys need to remind me. I'm going to read weapon item descriptions. God, there's so much shit in them. I feel kind of embarrassed for not reading it. Like, I feel like, you know, we could have pieced a little bit more of it during the playthrough and it would have made the experience a little bit different, you know? So we'll be carrying this over into Dark Souls 3. Believe it. Unless there's like 1,000 weapons, then I don't know. We'll see.
It's the latter, a mockery of the queen as Vendrick succeeded in delaying her access to the throne. And resentful because he must abandon his kingdom to keep it safe.
Wow.
Nashandra waits. During all this, she guides the undead, knowing she can't hope to ascend the throne without you. If you go back to her at different points in the game, she'll tell you about the dragon in the shrine and the king in the crypt.
No
She
way.
encourages you to descend upon the throne of want, and waits until you take out the throne watcher and the throne defender before finally presenting herself.
Brave undead, you have proven yourself to me. Now, be one with the dark.
Nashandra, born of Manus, has one final chance to take out the chosen undead and ascend the throne. But the undead is strong enough to overthrow the Sinner, the Rotten, the Old Iron King, and the Duke's dear Freya. Strong enough to conquer the giant memories and uncover Vendrick in his crypt. So just like in Dark Souls 1, we're strong enough at the end because of the barriers in our way, many of which were put there by King Vendrick. And because of Vendrick, we easily conquer Nashandra as she tries to stop you from ascending the throne.
That's so cool, man. That's so fucking cool.
Hope you enjoyed these two videos, guys. These two took a long time to research and make, and even then, I'm nowhere near answering all the questions in this game.
You
There's so
answered a
much
lot of
left
mine.
to uncover.
A lot of mine.
So many things that I left out of this video, just for simplicity's sake. I have a bunch of these questions listed in the description, and I'll probably make a video talking about them at some point. But if you wanted to try and answer some of them with your own theories in the comments down below that like button, then I think that would make for some great discussion.
That would make for great... Oh, that was so fucking good, man. Like, tell me that doesn't make sense, you know? Like, sure, there's a lot of speculating, but VaatiVidya is canon to me, all right? I have a lot more respect and love for Dark Souls 2, thanks to this video. I feel kind of silly that I didn't put a lot of these pieces together myself, but sometimes it's just got to be laid out in a way that it just makes sense, you know? And that's why I like VaatiVidya so much, man. He makes videos for people like me and maybe some of you guys, you know? People that aren't fucking digging into every single item description or whatnot, and I really appreciate it. His character was kind of cute, which, you know, made it even better. I'm down bad! Let's do the Dark Souls 2 DLC ending explained, and then we'll do the first sin explained. How many more times am I going to say explained?
Why did you come to Drangleic? It wasn't to sit the throne, and you knew nothing about linking a fire. You didn't come here to become the next monarch, nor did you come here to unite the crowns of past kings. We came here because of what we lost, memories long ago of things that were important to us. A woman, a child, a home. These represent a life that we no longer have. Once cursed, you lose everything. No one seems to know the origins of this curse, but no one seems to particularly care about it either. All they care about is a cure, and that's where Drangleic comes in, because Drangleic is a kingdom rumored by many characters within it to have this cure. As we travel through Drangleic, we become so embroiled with the stories of the people we meet and the land we explore that most people actually forget why they're there. Did you forget?
Yes.
Because if you did, that's rather the point. You forget, just like your character did. All this talk of kings and queens and thrones and whatnot, it's enough to confuse anyone into forgetting.
Thank you.
But I'm reminding you why you're here, because of what happens once you've completed the DLC and what happens once you've gathered the crown of every king. When you return to Vendrick, a short cinematic plays where he restores the power of the crowns. You might not have noticed this, but while wearing a crown from this point onwards, you're completely immune to the effects of the curse. Simply put, you'll no longer hollow upon death.
I did notice that, and I think I cut it out of the video by accident. The one episode where we did this, I think I accidentally cut that part out, but I did mention that, and I thought it was so cool. And it must have been one of those, like, you know, I accidentally try and clip the one after, but I clipped the two out of it. Sometimes these things happen, man. But I did pick up on that, and I thought that was really, really cool.
Your body will not decay, your mind will not fade. From a purely selfish point of view, you have essentially found a way to deflect the undead curse.
Right.
But there's a really important distinction you have to make here. Wearing the crowns isn't a cure for the curse, it's treatment. It helps you with the symptoms, but it's not a solution.
Right.
A cure for the curse means to become truly human, to live out a lifespan and die. That's what it means to be human. You know why we haven't cured our curse yet? It's because our character keeps respawning when he dies.
True.
The developer kind of needs this gameplay mechanic, so don't expect to get cured anytime soon.
Yeah.
To be undead is to be undying, and as you die over and over again, you forget what it is to be human. This process is called hollowing, and it continues until you become completely hollow. And just to be clear, that's hollow with a capital H, because once you become completely hollow, you can never attain your humanity again. Undead are called fateless by everything in the game because they're all destined to go hollow eventually. No other fate is allowed to them, but you're different.
Are you the next monarch, or merely a pawn of fate?
I believe all undead are pawns of fate because they're destined to hollow. The Herald makes this distinction between the next monarch and pawns of fate precisely because whoever is a true king does not hollow. Whoever unites the 4 crowns of lords long past will still be undead, but now they can cast off the shackles of fate and create a future that doesn't end in you turning into beef jerky. And you might be thinking, great, this is a blessing.
Yeah.
I can live forever and not feel the effects of hollowing. But think about how this would play out in reality.
Right.
Imagine being immune to the curse in a world filled with cursed people. In true Dark Souls fashion, you've been given a solution that involves watching everyone around you and everyone you love fade into
Yeah, that would
insanity.
suck. I would not want that.
You're the one sane person in a dying world.
It's like being
You
a
alone
vampire.
have found the one thing that all cursed undead in Drangleic are craving. Think about Lucatiel, who ends her journey just a few short steps from her brother, a woman who fully expects to go hollow. Lucatiel is just one of many humans who came to Drangleic precisely because they heard there was a cure here. And they were right, though the rumors made it sound way better than it was. There is a way to avoid hollowing in Drangleic, and we've found it. But the tragedy is, it's not a cure, and it only helps one person. This highlights how little we know about the curse, the cycles of kingdoms, and the nature of light and dark. Before we found the crowns, our motivation was internal. We wanted to stop hollowing. We wanted to stop losing memories of loved ones or things we cared about, and that's why we came here. But now that we've found the crowns, don't you feel like all of a sudden our motivation is focused externally? We're forced to seek answers from the world itself. Why does the curse exist? Why is history repeating itself? Why are katanas still so overpowered? Now that we have the crowns, we finally have the power to fight the undead curse indefinitely. And in my opinion, anything in the series from this point onwards should revolve around that singular fact.
Wow. That's really cool.
Find the crowns and your own answers.
There are 4 lords in Dark Souls 1 who found 4 great souls of power within the first flame. Nito, Gwyn, the Witch of Izalith, and the Furtive Pygmy. Each of their souls are found within Dark Souls 2 as well. They're called the Souls of the Ineffable, too extreme to be described. Each of them says in their description that they continue to exert influence over the land, even though they're just remnants of once great souls. The key phrase is, exerts influence over the land. These souls don't just inhabit the bodies of certain beings, They do, but just like the pale drake soul infests the writhing ruin of sand and spiders, I believe that the other souls become a part of the land itself. What if, long ago, a chosen undead carved all the souls from these beings and put them in a lord vessel created to hold souls? What if this lord vessel broke and the souls no longer had a vessel to hold them? It's just speculation, but it could be true. A king unites his kingdom, and the crown is his symbol. I believe the crowns hold the strength of lords from Dark Souls 1, a power carried into the kingdoms these kings inhabit, and since the crown is a symbol of a kingdom, it could hold their power. The sunken crown would contain Nito's power. This king ruled far underground in a kingdom lost to toxicity.
True.
It lies behind the Rotten, who is an amalgamation of humanoid things, just like Nito is an amalgamation of skeletons. It has his characteristics.
Yeah.
The Iron Crown would contain Gwyn's power. This Iron King, arrogant with his strength, built a kingdom of fire. We kill the Iron King himself, who holds a part of Gwyn's soul. And the Ivory Crown would contain the Witch's power. It's from a kingdom that fought and protected and possibly created a powerful flame of chaos. It's directly related to the lost sinner,
That's so
who
cool,
relit
man.
a flame of her own. And lastly, Vendrick ruled a kingdom of men, and he turned hollow himself. He and his kingdom seem directly related to the dark soul of humanity. By comparison, the previous kings are nowhere to be found, so maybe they weren't cursed, or maybe they weren't human, though I guess they could be. You could argue that all kingdoms had humans within them, but it is interesting to note that there are more references to the undead curse in Vendrick's kingdom, as well as his kingdom only containing human-sized humans, where the other ones contain taller, humanoid creatures. I don't know what to call them. It's always best to ignore size in Dark Souls lore. It seems to be an indication of power more than anything else in this universe. But bottom line is there are more links to humans in Vendrick's kingdom, which means he's more closely related to the pygmy, which means he's more closely related to the dark soul and humanity. So the crowns could hold the strength of the four lords who held shards of the first flame. Now, a lot of the assumptions I'm going to make do rely on this fact, but I do believe that what we've essentially done is inherit the power of the first flame. There are a few other things to back this up. I mean, Nishandra was after the first flame, after all.
If you proceed, Nishandra will come after you, knowing that you will take the throne and link the fire. She covets the first flame and the great soul. Put Nishandra to rest.
That would make sense.
She and her sisters were driven to collect all of the crowns. They went into each kingdom and drove their kings to ruin. If they had any united goal, any singular purpose that would drive them to go and conquer kingdoms, it would be to take these crowns, I think. This also explains the description on Vendrick's soul.
Shit, I didn't know you could get up there. Fuck. So they were all sisters, daughters of madness. That is pretty hard. That's very hard indeed. That's what she said.
This also explains the description on Vendrick's soul. The king was wasted away, a shadow of his former self, but he still held something dear. We originally thought that he was referring to the ring he has that unlocks his kingdom, but if it's dear to him, it could well have been his crown. He did lock it away as well. He wasn't just hiding the throne away from Nishandra. The crown is really important too. It holds a faint heat within it, and the heat could be a clue to it being a fragment of the power of the first flame. I'd say we need Vendrick's blessing to realize this power, because Vendrick is essentially passing his monarchy over to us. Long ago, he conquered the four great ones and built a kingdom upon their souls, uniting the first flame. So now it's time for us to ascend to his rule. Nishandra was forced to wait for Vendrick to pass away as he hid from her. When we kill Vendrick, she tells us,
Drang Lake is no longer.
but by going into Vendrick's memory, by going back in time and taking the monarchy from him, we can alter the timeline. He can pass this monarchy to us.
Inherit fire and harness the dark. Such is the calling of a true leader.
We are inheriting the fire. The crowns are that fire. Together, they could well be a representation of the Great Soul, or the First Flame. Once we've inherited this fire, we no longer hollow, so we can harness the dark, the power to never die. So we have all this, though. What now? What's our purpose now?
Seek strength. The rest will follow.
There is still more we have to do. It's not over yet. To succeed, we must throw off the dark. But is such a thing even possible?
Shadow is not cast, but born of fire. And the brighter the flame, the deeper the shadow.
All this makes me think that Vendrick may once have been in our position. He might have been unable to die, searching for a cure. It seems like he found answers, but it's definitely true that they weren't the ones he was hoping for.
With fire, they say, a true king can harness the curse. A lie, but I knew no better. One day fire will fade, and dark will become a curse.
The opening cutscene of Dark Souls also says,
"But soon the flames will fade, and only dark will remain."
all this information doesn't bode well for us. Eternal darkness seems to be that one conclusion most characters with more knowledge than us come to. That's not good.
Men will be free from death, left to wander eternally.
To wander eternally and to be free from death. That is essentially to be hollow. In fact, some argue that this is the original state of all humanoid beings. Before the first flame, what you see on screen, that seems to be what all humanoid creatures were created from. And I'd go as far as to say as they are hollows. They're empty vessels. And when they found souls within the first flame, they became different things. They became unique beings. So some of these beings found 4 powerful souls in the first flame, and they took these souls for themselves. So there was Gwyn, there was the witch, there was Nito, but the most important one to us was the furtive pygmy. He or she was the
most
holder of the
forgettable
dark
one.
soul. That creature gave humanity fragments to the hollows and created humans.
Wow.
He broke his soul, which we know people can do. He broke his soul into little bits and he gave everyone a shard of humanity. Essentially, he created humanity. For Vendrick to say that men will be free from death is to say that they will lose their humanity. He's saying we will no longer die. We will revert to this hollow state and we will wander eternally, just like you see in this cutscene.
Dark will again be ours, and in our true shape, we can bury the false legends of yore. Only...
He's saying that we can only escape the cycle by embracing darkness, instead of continually relighting the first flame,
Right.
and continually starting that cycle over again.
Only... Is this our only choice?
Eventually, Nashandra or some other element of dark might win and bring the kingdom to darkness.
Seek strength. The rest will follow.
A king sees what he chooses to see, and just like in Dark Souls 1, do we embrace dark and allow the queens to win, or do we fight it to relight the first flame? The fire can give comfort, but it can burn like the flame of chaos did. Just so, dark can represent hatred and lust for power, but there are examples of tranquility and forgiveness within it. So, are you fighting against a side, or are you fighting to show that humanity can be the best of both? So that pretty much does it for my speculation.
I just got chills.
I really want to end on this one final note. Something doesn't feel right with the way the DLC was ended. Now granted, it's not like From to do a huge, dramatic ending that explains everything. But even so, it makes little sense from a gameplay perspective. Why give players power over hollowing if you're not giving them anything else to fight? From Software often makes their point through gameplay, and from a gameplay perspective, this ending was lacking. We were all hoping for that huge fight with Manus, or the discovery that Shanalot was our queen. Some twist, Speaking of which, I want to talk about Shanalot. So put your conspiracy hats on, because Alsana, Alana, Nashandra, Nadalia, all these queens have the na sound in their name, including Shanalot. I'm not saying she's our queen, guys, but come on, she's totally our queen. The connections just keep happening. When you also consider that Alsana says,
My sisters are as a thick dark, their lust for souls insatiable.
This kind of makes you think, oh shit, I've been giving the Emerald Herald my souls for the whole game. Anyway, that's enough Emerald Herald speculation. Funny. I love doing it. So take off your Shanalot conspiracy hats and put back on your DLC speculation hats for a second, because I'm not done talking about the potential of there being more DLC. There's still a fair bit left in the game files we haven't seen, and From Software intentionally calls the Ivory King DLC the final chapter of the Crown's trilogy. They don't call it the end of Dark Souls 2. If I was to guess, I'd say that there's more DLC coming, although I'm not 100% sure, obviously.
Joke's on you,
Collecting
bud.
all 3 crowns wasn't a conclusion from a lore point of view, and even from a gameplay point of view, it wasn't conclusive either. If there was nothing left to fight, why would they give us the power to resist hollowing, you know? And also, if Dark Souls 2 ends here, what kind of stage does this set for Dark Souls 3, considering our main character in Dark Souls 2 has inherited the power to exist throughout timelines? That would be a really weird premise to start Dark Souls 3 on, although it could still be done. You know, your character could become the big bad boss, or your character could become a legend or something like that. But yeah, even Vendrick's last piece of dialogue seems to be a clue.
The rest will follow.
It might not happen, guys, but I got a feeling. The DLC was damn good for the price as well. And if the team hasn't moved on to Bloodborne, then I really do expect more out of them. The biggest question I have, if there was more DLC, is how is their timing going to work? Considering that there's a release of Bloodborne coming in February.
This is so funny to watch.
That's the most confusing thing to me. It's not going to be easy to balance these 2 series and make sure one doesn't eclipse the other, you know?
I want to read some of the comments, but obviously I want to be very careful that we don't spoil Dark Souls 3. So I'm just going to read like maybe the first few. This one's got a lot of likes, so. No, but wait, has anyone noticed that in the Nashandra battle, she enters the fog gate to challenge you, not the other way around? As if you are the boss that she is here to overcome. Through the whole game, it is thought that the player is the traveler who pushes through everyone else in the land. But like they, the other in-game bosses, thought they were. We become the next monarch only to sit at a throne and await future enemies. Essentially, by the end of the game, the player has become one of the bosses. That's really cool, man. Wow, that was an absolute joy to watch, as usual, man. Let's jump into our very last video and then final remarks. I absolutely love doing these episodes, man. I don't know what I would do without VaatiVidya. Also, let me know down below, guys, what you think about the lore, the games. Obviously, don't spoil Dark Souls 3. That would be much appreciated, but I would love to hear what you guys have to say as well, man.
As flame rises, so does it fade. Such is the way of things.
Light and dark. Neither can fade while the other survives. This is the law of the Dark Souls universe, and all the characters within are bound by its principles. But it was not always this way. Once, long ago, the world was grey, without heat, cold, life, death, light or dark. But then the first flame appeared.
After the advent of fire, the ancient lords found the 3 souls, but your progenitor found a 4th, unique soul, the Dark Soul. Your ancestor claimed the Dark Soul and waited for fire to subside, and soon the flames did fade, and only dark remained. Thus began the Age of Men, the Age of Dark.
This was the natural progression that was supposed to take place in the world. It was supposed to be the Age of Ancients, and then the Age of Fire, then the Dark Age of Man.
However, Lord Gwyn trembled at the dark, clinging to his Age of Fire and in dire fear of humans and the Dark Lord who would one day be born amongst them. Lord Gwyn resisted the course of nature by sacrificing himself to link the fire and commanding his children to shepherd the humans. Gwyn has blurred your past to prevent the birth of the Dark Lord.
What Gwyn did could be called the first sin, for he resisted the course of nature. He forced the darkness back, and from this moment forth the light and the dark have been in a constant ebb and flow, like the rising and the falling of the tide. In the ending of Dark Souls 1, we are a part of this flow. The world is in the grip of darkness, filled with broken, tired characters. We tear through the remains of their fragile world and are guided to the kiln of the first flame. Here, we have a choice. We can do the same thing Gwyn did and bolster the power of the flame with our own soul, or we can turn our back on the dying light and let darkness grip the world. Before Dark Souls 2, we thought that these endings were polar opposites, but we were wrong. The choice itself is irrelevant, and whether you linked the flame or whether you turned your back on it, your choice would have led to the events of Dark Souls 2. It would have led to the kingdom of Drangleic, where our character exists. Drangleic was once a proud kingdom of light, but it has fallen into darkness and decay like the countless kingdoms before it.
No flame, however brilliant, does not one day splutter and fade. But then, from the ashes, the flame reignites, and a new kingdom is born, sporting a new face. It is all a curse. And it is your cursed flesh that will inherit the flame.
In the ending of Dark Souls 2, we once again arrive at the kiln to either link the fire or let the world fade into darkness.
Once the fire is linked, souls will flourish anew, and all of this will play out again. It is your choice to embrace or renounce this.
The Emerald Herald pushes us to link the fire, for she wishes to be free of the curse. It reminds me of Anastasia from Dark Souls 1, a firekeeper who also wished for us to link the fire.
Framt has told me of you, that you have agreed to link the fire. I thank you sincerely. Finally, the curse of the undead will be lifted, and I can die human.
To link the fire is to become free of the curse of the undead, and if linking the fire frees us of the curse, then it does follow that the initial linking of the fire, the thing that started all of this, is related to the curse. Aldia says as much, after all.
Once the Lord of Light banished dark and all that stand from humanity, and men assumed a fleeting form. These are the roots of our world.
What Aldia is saying is that when Gwyn linked the fire and banished dark, man became much less. He says that man assumed a fleeting form. Fleeting means temporary, so I take this to mean that Gwyn reduced mankind's existence in some way. But what exactly? Did he make them mortal? Did he place the undead curse upon them, causing them to return to their hollow state? And as far as I know, there's nothing in the game that explicitly explains what Gwyn's linking of the flame did to man. My current theory is that Gwyn actually linked the fire to humanity, which would explain a lot. By doing this, he could feed the flame with humanity's souls, plus it would explain why we respawn at the bonfire, why we kindle the bonfire, and why we're drawn to it even though our nature is inherently dark. Egdane says,
In the past, humans were one with the dark.
And we are one with it no longer.
Men are props in state of life, and no matter how tender, how explicit, a lie will remain a lie.
Men became something to be used. You can hear the fury in his voice when he says this, because Aldia realizes that men were supposed to inherit the world, but they can't, because the world seems stuck in a cycle of light and dark. Men had everything to...
Holy shit, I completely forgot I was recording. Oh my god. I've not said a word in like 6 minutes. It just goes to show how good these videos are, man. Let's be real, okay? This is a watch party. This is not a reaction. This is a watch party. I like to share these moments with you guys. I do realize that. You know, I could watch these on my own, but I'd rather do it with you guys. And you know, maybe you haven't seen this in a while. You know, we can have a fresh conversation in 2023 of a game that came out many moons ago. Anyways, sorry. I just feel bad for not saying anything. It's just, I get way too into them.
Taken from them, but this defines them. They are fateless, but they still want for more. And so they loved, they lost, and they achieved, all within the bounds of their desire.
Peace grants men the illusion of life.
While the flame is at its height, and the world is peaceful, mankind seems able to die. We know this because the curse of undeath is always listed as something that appears, rather than something that has always existed. Usually, this happens sometime after the fire has been linked, perhaps as soon as it begins to fade. For example, Gwyn was undone long after he linked the fire, and similarly, Vendrick started to fear the curse after his reign had begun. He began to fear men who would not die, men who were cursed to return to their hollow state.
Shackled by falsehoods, they yearn for love, unaware of its grand illusion. Until the curse touches their flesh.
Damn.
We are bound by this yoke. As true as the dark that turns within men.
This is the fate that the Emerald Herald, Vendrick, and Anastasia want to avoid by linking the fire. They want to be free from the curse of the undead so that they can become human and die. Better to die than to become a soulless husk like you see in the trailer. So in the original ending of Dark Souls 2, you could choose to link the fire, or you could choose to let it fade. Both are irrelevant, because the world of Dark Souls 2 is defined by the countless civilizations that have risen and fallen. This one ending, where you ascend the throne, and the Emerald Herald tells you you can link the fire, or walk away from it, is the same as the two endings of Dark Souls 1. Because whether you link the fire, or extend the Age of Dark, you become part of the cycle. So Dark Souls 2 gives you no in-game choice to be made, because in this game, you are supposed to have learned that there is no significant choice to be made. If you link the fire, the cycle renews, and if you choose not to, eventually an undead will rise who can unseat you and link the fire.
That's crazy.
That's who your character in Dark Souls 2 is, after all. Vendrick was the Lord of Light before you, but after spending countless years researching the curse, he realized that it was all futile. His soul's description says that he is the one who should have linked the fire, but he became overwhelmed by despair and seems to have accepted the darkness instead.
One day fire will fade, and dark will become a curse. Men will be free from death, left to wander eternally. Dark will again be ours, and in our true shape, we can bury the false legends of yore.
Vendrick is inclined to believe that there are two choices, to link the fire or let it fade. He believes that by accepting the darkness, the world will eventually pass into an age of man built around their dark souls.
Only, is this our only choice?
And while it is true that we have never seen exactly what happens once the flame fades entirely, Aldia is a character who believes that it never will.
Young Aldo, there are but two paths. Inherit the order of this world, or destroy it. And only a true monarch can make such a choice.
To link the fire or to let it fade. These aren't two choices, they're one. This is what Aldia calls inheriting the order of the world. It's the order Gwyn began long ago when he linked the flame, forcing the darkness and the light into a constant ebb and flow, a cycle that would repeat itself throughout the centuries. But Aldia tells us of a second choice, not to inherit the order of the world, but to destroy the cycle entirely. And this is exactly the ending Dark Souls 2 needed, for we are the one undead in history who is able to ignore the hollowing effects of the curse. And in my previous video on this topic, I told you about the effects of gathering the 3 crowns from the DLC. When you have the 3 crowns, it doesn't cure the undead curse, it stops you from hollowing.
Right.
And once you have united the crowns of lords long past, you have the ability to ignore your fate. You can now exist outside of the cycle, for while every other undead is immortal, you are the only one who will never be broken by the curse, and you are the one who will never hollow.
Many monarchs have come and gone. One drowned in poison, others turned to flame. Still slumbers in the realm of ice. Not one of them stood here. As you do now. You, conqueror of adversities.
I love that line.
Give us your answer.
Throughout the entire game, we've been told that we do what we do without really knowing why. But that is exactly what it means to be man. It's exactly what is required of you in the end. For there is no path, and we are the one undead who can forge forward, forging a new path and bringing us into a new age. Not an age of ancients which passed naturally, not an age of fire which Gwyn failed to implement, nor an age of dark which Nishandra perished by. We are the true monarch, who cannot perish, who cannot hollow, and we seek to break free of the cycle, to march forward bravely into an uncertain future.
Damn. I love that I chose this ending.
There is no path. Beyond the scope of light, beyond the reach of dark. What could possibly await us?
Dark Souls 3, baby. May 15th. Jeez, man.
And yet we seek it insatiably. Such is our fate.
My God, bro. That was so fucking good. That was not even, he didn't even have an outro, man. Whoa. Dark Souls 3 lore, get the fuck away from my screen. I closed it. I closed everything. I was close, boys. That was close. I love this. I absolutely love this. I love that you're not supposed to know what the hell's going on. It made me feel a lot better about myself, but it also made the whole game way cooler in my eyes. There's a lot more meaning behind the bosses, their locations, their dialogues. VaatiVidya, as always, does an amazing job at putting all the pieces together and making it digestible for us, which is why I love watching this video so much. I do wonder if this is going to carry over into Dark Souls 3. The fact that we don't hollow, like that is all, I feel like it's the biggest part of the entire ending of the game. I have heard that Dark Souls 2 is very much detached from the trilogy, but I really don't see that. The amount of connections to Dark Souls 1, the uncertainty of where we're going seems like, you know, it's going to tie in very, very well to Dark Souls 3. At the end of Dark Souls 1, it didn't really hit that, the whole cycle, the whole, you know, how everything just kind of repeats itself, and this fight between light and dark, that kind of made sense in Dark Souls 1, but this one really drove the point of like, it really doesn't matter what it is that you do, because eventually it'll all kind of get flipped around, which just honestly adds to the oppressive nature of these games that I personally love, honestly. They make me feel something. Yeah, no, that was incredible. My love for Dark Souls 2 has definitely grown a lot more. In terms of the lore, I mean, some of the stuff that had happened in the past with Vendrick and his affairs with the Queen and the origins of the daughters and, you know, all of the connections to the first game, it just goes to show how much detail and how much the writer spent on them, you know, and that is truly a craft that I admire and I appreciate. That's why we do Lore and Chill, man. It's really just an appreciation of the craft. Can't wait to get into Dark Souls 3. Obviously, after we finish the trilogy, I'm sure there's going to be a lot more lore videos that we can watch that explain the entire story as a whole. I'm very much looking forward to that. It did answer a lot of my questions. It gave me a whole new perspective on the lore of Dark Souls 2 and a lot of the choices, and you know, it makes sense why it didn't make sense. Overall, I feel like the Dark Souls 2 experience is coming to a close in a beautiful, beautiful way. While I did have some negative opinions about Dark Souls 2, there are a lot of positives, and if they carry over this stuff into Dark Souls 3, that'll kind of tie it up for me in a nice little bow. I can't wait to start playing these games again, man. I feel like Dark Souls 2, we ended it, what, like less than a week ago, and it feels like a month. Like, I want to get back to playing these games. I want to wrap it up with the lore. It's something we do, and I can't just jump into the next game without truly understanding the second one. So I really like that we did this. And just like in Dark Souls, the flame fades when it's the brightest or whatever. Thank you so much for joining me. Make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.